Hey everyone, let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about area, specifically, the area of some basic shapes. We're not just going to memorize formulas, we're going to figure out why they work, by using a little bit of picture-based logic. Let's begin with the simplest one, the rectangle. You all know that to find the area of a rectangle, you multiply its length by its width. But why? Think of it as counting how many little unit squares can fit inside it. If you have a row of squares that matches the length, and you stack up as many rows as the width, the total number of squares is simply the length multiplied by the width. It's the foundation for everything else. A square is just a special rectangle where the length and the width are the same. So, if all sides are the same length, let's call it A, then the area is just A times A. Now, what about a parallelogram? It looks like a rectangle that's been pushed sideways. So, how do we find its area? Look at the picture on the left. You see a parallelogram with a base and a height. The height is that perpendicular distance from the top to the bottom. Now, imagine we take that pointy triangle on the left side. We can actually cut it off. If we slide that triangle over to the right side, what does it become? It fits perfectly and turns into a rectangle. Look at the picture on the right, and you can see it. So, the area of a parallelogram is exactly the same as the area of that rectangle we just formed. It's the base times the height. Next up, the triangle. How can we find the area of a triangle? Well, look at the two pictures. On the left, you have a single triangle. Now, imagine we take an identical copy of that triangle and we rotate it. When we put the two triangles together, what shape do we get? A parallelogram. You can see it on the right. So, one triangle is exactly half of that parallelogram. Since we know the area of a parallelogram is base times height, the area of just one triangle must be half of that. 1/2 times the base times the height. Now for the trapezoid. A trapezoid has two parallel sides of different lengths. We call them base 1 and base 2. How do we deal with this? One way is to see that you can combine two identical trapezoids. Look at the picture on the right. If you take a second trapezoid, flip it over, and attach it to the first one, they fit together perfectly to form a parallelogram. What is the base of that big parallelogram? Its length is base 1 plus base 2. The height is the same as the original trapezoid's height. So, the area of the two trapezoids together is base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Since we only want the area of one trapezoid, we take half of that. So, the area is the average of the two bases, multiplied by the height. Finally, let's talk about the circle. This one is a little different. First, we need to understand a special number called pi. Pi is a constant, and it's the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. No matter how big or small your circle is, if you take the distance around it, the circumference, and divide it by the distance across it, the diameter, you always get the same number, pi, which is approximately 3.14. So, how do we find the area? Imagine you have a pizza, and you cut it into a lot of very thin, identical slices. Now, if you take all these slices and rearrange them, alternating point up and point down, you can form a shape that looks almost like a parallelogram. The more slices you have, the more it looks like a perfect parallelogram. Now, what are the dimensions of this parallelogram? The height of it is roughly the radius of the circle. The base of it is about half the distance around the circle. And what is half the circumference? Well, the full circumference is 2 times pi times the radius, so half of that is just pi times the radius. So, we have a parallelogram with a base of pi times the radius, and a height of radius. The area of a parallelogram is base times height. So, that gives us pi times the radius, which simplifies to pi times the radius squared. And that is the famous formula for the area of a circle. So, to recap, a rectangle is length times width. A square is side times side. A parallelogram is base times height. A triangle is half of that. A trapezoid is the average of its two bases times the height. And a circle is pi times the radius squared. I hope seeing the pictures and the reasoning helps you remember not just the formulas, but the logic behind them.